Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well, and it's time for a beef review. One of the most heated but also unlikely to just come out of nowhere. Of course, that would be Pusha T and New York rapper Jim Jones. Now, I know there's a lot of younger viewers in my audience who may not even know who the hell Jim Jones is. But, you know, if you're a New Yorker, an East Coaster, and you vividly remember the bling rap era of the 2000s, you know Jim Jones, you know Dipset, Diplomats, you know Bird Gang. While at the time the presence and impact of the Diplomats was not at the level of like a 50 Cent or a G-Unit, something like that, they still were like hugely influential and, very popular, had a lot of great songs. Jim Jones himself had a pretty strong hit with a "We Fly High, Bowling." And while he's far from one of my favorite rappers, I do have fond memories of, his music from back in the day, and Diplomats especially. Yeah, while his stuff has kind of, washed out over the years and isn't as well played as it was at one point, that's kind of the case for a lot of, East Coast bling era hip hop. It's not like 50 Cent's catalog has aged that well. Some people have their moment in the sun. Jim Jones most certainly did. And at this point, he's a scholar. He's a veteran, which is why recently he was invited onto the Rap Caviar podcast to, I believe, talk about the same top 50s rappers list that we did on this channel not too long ago. But Jim took, I guess, an issue specifically with the placement of Pusha T on that list. And he was kind of loud about it, and he was kind of dismissive about it, overly dismissive, I would say, for some reason. If we could play that clip here, I think a lot of his arguments against Pusha T being included in this list were kind of whack.
What has he done? Nobody has dressed like him. Nobody wants to be like Pusha T. Big Sean before Pusha T.
Easily. But Jim Jones is on there before Pusha T.
Bro, you go in these clubs, I don't know no records they play in the club with or Pusha T. They don't play outside. NBA Youngboy before Pusha T.
Like, for one, what does it matter how many people at the time, Clips's creative heyday, were trying to dress like Pusha T or act like Pusha T? Who made more timeless music? And for that matter, how many people at the time of Jim Jones, during his heyday in the 2000s, were trying to dress like Jim Jones? No disrespect to the Diplomats, though, because Cameron back in the day was turning out fits. But with that being said, also he brought up the fact that Pusha T raps about selling a bunch of coke that he never sold, and so on and so forth. And look, that's been talked about. That's been discussed. That's been acknowledged. The fans know that as he releases a new record in the 2020s, that he's not literally selling the cocaine that he's rapping about right then and there. Are you telling me there's not a single Bird Gang or Diplomat song where something is rapped about that somebody on that track didn't actually do? Silly standard. Nobody's operating by this standard. There's no hip hop truth police enforcing a 100% truth accuracy rating on every bar coming out of everybody's mouth. It's silly. So again, for whatever reason that he was, Jim Jones was just overly dismissive toward Pusha T's inclusion in this list. Don't know why, but he was. Pusha T has clearly caught wind of this, and his responses up until now have mostly been subliminal. Be that a little Instagram caption or an appearance recently with him and his brother at a Louis V show, where they were walking down the catwalk in some, Louis Vuitton outfits, which I don't know. I'm not a fashion guy. I thought they looked kind of silly, but that's just me. Regardless, as they were walking and presenting these outfits, a track from them was playing, new, unreleased cut. The bars from Push could audibly be heard on the track, and people kind of put two and two together and figured that what he's saying here might be about Jim Jones. While what he's saying isn't exactly direct, it is very scathing and poetic. Crush you to pieces, I'll hum a breath of it. I will close your heaven for the hell of it. You think it'd be valor amongst veterans. I'm watching your fame escape relevance. We all in a room, but here's the elephant. You chasing a feature out of your element. I can't say I disagree with anything being said there, but I will say, though, I'm a little disappointed that if Pusha T was going to respond and was going to fire back, that he wouldn't actually just do it straight on in a song, just make it clear and to the point. And the reason I say that is because you have to kind of like consider all the years that Pusha T spent like firing at Baby, firing at Lil Wayne, firing at Drake, just like praying one day that there would be a direct response. And it took a long time to get it. It took a very, very long time to get it, but when he eventually did, he capitalized big time and won what was probably the biggest rap beef of the 2010s. For sure, for all those years, Pusha T clearly felt he was owed a response, owed an engagement of some sort, and now he's kind of in the Drake position. He's in the big guy position where he is more known and more discussed, and generally, at least as far as the current rap field sits, more relevant than Jim Jones. Certainly, it could be argued that, you know, in their respective heydays, did Diplomats and Jim Jones have like, you know, maybe a higher peak of relevancy? I mean, you know, maybe being as close to New York as I was at the time, I'm a little biased, but like clearly it's Pusha T at the end of the day who made the more relevant and more timeless music. Yeah, they're both veterans, and who is putting out records that receive bigger features, more discussion, more attention today? That's Pusha T. So Pusha T, I guess, being in the position that he's in, I would rather kind of, you know, throw responses out there in more of a subtle, more of an indirect way. Meanwhile, it's Jim Jones, who doesn't really have all that much to lose and smells blood in the water and is like, oh boy, he's talking about me. So of course, like Jimmy heard this immediately, slapped together a track, slapped together a video for it, got it up on YouTube. I haven't heard it yet. I'll give my thoughts right after we get a bit of a taste test, of course.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of disappointed, nigga. But listen here, before you drop that, well, before you drop this shit, let me give you some inspiration.
Bit of a fiery freestyle there. More aggressive and hungry than I'm usually used to hearing him these days. Beat choice was really good on this one, and I mean, you know, he was definitely throwing some personal shots out there, getting into the Kanye stuff, which, I mean, you know, Push has very quietly distanced himself from all that and Kanye's madness as of late. But, you know, still, there's a connection there, and Jim Jones is right to exploit it. Going at Pusha T's brother, throws out a lot of flexes, a lot of threats, a lot of very actual bold and, you know, pointed threats. We're talking motive, we're talking weapon, we're talking location. I hope this beef stays just on record. That is my hope for this. He makes a few clever references to Push's work as well. Once again, calls into question the coke dealing, throws a few retorts out there against the subs that Pusha T put in that little clips track that's unreleased. There's a few moments where it kind of seems like vocally he stumbled a little bit. It wasn't like the cleanest performance or anything like that, but you know, it was focused, it was hard hitting, and it was like right at Pusha T's throat, as close as Jim Jones could get to it at this point, because I mean, honestly, it didn't really seem like he had a whole lot to go off of. I'm not really sure how personally he knows the guy at the end of the day. At the end of all of this, did this diss blow me away? Did it shake, you know, my feelings about Pusha T and his music? And do I feel like Pusha T needs to respond to this? I think the diss is fine. It's okay. It's decent. It's not the most scathing I've ever heard, but, you know, Jim Jones responded, stood up for himself, had something to say. Maybe a lot of what's going on here is based on a weird, irrational dislike that comes out of nowhere, but you know, it's beef all the same, I suppose. It certainly wasn't trash, I'll say that. I just don't really know where this is coming from and why. From here, where could things go, and what do I think Pusha T should do? I would think originally his strategy with not really responding all that much and just kind of treating this like, you know, Drake did him at one point and just not, you know, not saying anything. That was probably the way to go, especially since, you know, as he said, Jones is chasing a feature that he can't have. Like, if you think the dude is out of your league, then he's out of your league. Don't respond. But even if it was on an unreleased track, Pusha T did respond. So the can of worms that's opening up from here is kind of on him, even if Jim Jones at the end of the day was talking really recklessly on a podcast. So I'm not really sure if Pusha T needed to acknowledge what was said in the first place, but he did. And because he did it a little indirectly, it provided Jim Jones the opportunity to respond more boldly, actually put your name in his mouth and, kind of like gain notoriety and attention off of this whole situation, because this beef is making headlines. This video is doing numbers. This is the most discussion Jim Jones has had in a long time. That's maybe why responding from here for Push would not necessarily be the best idea. In this beef, what does Jim Jones have to lose? Nothing. He will go to the ends of the earth because this thing, again, is the most relevance he's had attached to him in quite a while. I would argue Pusha T actually does have something to lose in this beef if it were to go left. Now, do I think it's within Pusha T to make a direct response to Jim and just like completely tear him apart lyrically and, just devastate the guy? Yeah, sure. But like, what would that do? What impact would that have at the end of the day? Would it make Jim Jones less relevant? Not really. But again, don't blame the guy because he got the response from Push that he wanted, and he's just kind of taking advantage of the opportunity that Pusha, I think, foolishly threw in front of him. Unfortunately, I don't know if Pusha has too many options in front of him that don't include engaging with the guy. Dude, you did kind of add gasoline to this fire, and now the tables have sort of turned, and you're acting like you're too big to respond to the other dude. Directly, anyway. And I guess we'll see if this somehow escalates from here. I'm hoping it doesn't, because I just don't see the point in this particular beef, because it's not like it's two dudes fighting over the top spot, and it's not like there was like, bad blood long running between these guys in the first place. This is just seemingly out of nowhere and due to one rapper being very vocal about his feelings on another rapper's work in a very dismissive way, mind you, but still. And that's pretty much it. But let me know what you guys think of this rap beef. Do you love it? Do you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Over here next to my head, another video you can check out. Hit that up with a link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Pusha T, Jim Jones, bowling forever.